I really like the future of VELO, and it's not only just because maybe I could hypothetically see VELO going to the price of $1 during this run. It goes beyond that because even though nothing I say is financial advice, when we think about VELO, we think about remittances. We think about USDV, the stable coin, right? We think about centralized, decentralized finance, or, for short, it stands for CDFI. But not too long ago, I saw a post on X, and it was kind of showcasing how VELO, and of course, this is from the VELO X account, right? And they were kind of showcasing very briefly how they had an aspect of what I believe to be AI meets PayFi. Now, what does PayFi stands for? It stands for payment finance. And why do I like this so much? It's because when I think about VELO originally, right, I don't think about AI. I don't think about all this. I think about, again, primarily remittances, USDV and all that I mentioned before. But I think VELO, a little bit having this kind of shift, it feels like, it kind of showcases how they are a project that understands the trend. They understand what people like. And also, on top of that, they maybe, in my opinion, also see the direction in which AI is heading. And I think it could be so huge moving forward. But really, when it comes to VELO, it's one of these projects that are not stuck in their ways, right? Because they're willing to evolve. They're really willing to kind of, change what they're focused on a little bit. It doesn't mean they're abandoning everything, but it showcases that they are focusing on amazing markets. Because let's take a look at AI, right? The AI market is predicted to reach nearly $2 trillion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. That's a very big amount. I mean, just take a look at the GDP of Canada, for instance. Back in 2023, it was around $2 trillion. And 2023 is not even that long ago, right? So this is very amazing. Not to mention as well, when we take a look at PayFi, we have to take a look at the payments market and the global trade and finance market. Because, for instance, the payments market is already currently valued at over $2 trillion. So when I take a look at VELO, it's very amazing what they're doing, really, because when we take a look at projects that are focused on remittances, I think there's really not that much to begin with, because we kind of have to think about how it's not a market that's really hyped. And what do I mean about remittances? Let me explain it very briefly. Like, for instance, let's say, I'm from Brazil, right? I'm from Sao Paulo, and I'm working, let's say, abroad in Sydney, Australia, which I've been to Sydney a couple times, actually. But I'm just saying, hopefully I can go to Brazil soon. And, I think it's very amazing. But even besides that, let's say, again, I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I'm working in Australia. If, let's say, I'm sending money back home, that's considered remittance. That's just an example, right? And again, VELO is kind of focused on that, but initially they're focused on the Southeast Asian region, which I think is good because it kind of showcases how they're not necessarily trying to fix everything at once. They're trying to focus on certain areas and then maybe eventually moving on to other places, hopefully in a very good way. So I do like that. But the way I take a look at it is this. There is kind of like a limit on what a project that is focused on remittances could be, at least for the foreseeable future, because it's not really a hype market, right? I don't think anyone is trying to get into cryptocurrencies, at least from what I've heard, right? I've never heard anyone say, hey, you know what? We're trying to get into the world of cryptos to be focused on projects that are, focused on remittances. I've never heard that. I've heard people say they want to join for AI, for meme coins, for NFTs, for blockchain gaming, for DeFi, for all this type of stuff, right? But not really for a project that is primarily focused on remittances, which I think VELO is. Of course, again, it has an aspect of like CDFI, which I talked about earlier on the video, but that's not really like something that is often thought about when people think about VELO. They usually think about remittances. So VELO is kind of taking a chance here because it doesn't necessarily mean that their mints market, especially for the hype and attention, is going to be a big hit. We just don't know. But the way you take a look at it is that time and time again, I've seen in the world of cryptocurrencies, people move in trends. So eventually, I believe some of that attention could maybe flow into projects that are focused on remittances. But again, I think there's a limit. So of course, by VELO having an aspect of AI meets PayFi, that right there, I think really adds more of a, layer to something like VELO. And I think maybe it could be a big narrative for it, especially during a fully fledged bull run. But as of right now, it really is just a waiting game. Because even though Bitcoin had a slight pullback, I still think it's Bitcoin's time, because just take a look at how much liquidity is in Bitcoin, take a look at the attention and how strong it's holding. But the same can't really be said when it comes to altcoins, because even though in some individual cases, we've seen some altcoins have a pretty good run, and also some altcoins, kind of recovering from what felt like a bottom maybe to some altcoins out there, we haven't really seen, like, in a broader sense, like a 2021 type of altcoin season. there's no guarantees. But the way to take a look at it is that we can at least learn some clues from history, because usually, as a worst case scenario, altcoins, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event, which would actually mean around October this year based on the last Bitcoin halving event that happened in April of 2024. So when we take a look at that date, there's still a ways away. So I can't really say that, oh, the altcoin season is gone and all this. There's no way to tell, right? But then from what I've seen historically speaking, it just doesn't feel like, we're gonna not have maybe an altcoin season. I just don't know. But again, this is just my speculation. Now, Velo, at the idea of $1, right? Some people may think, oh, it's too much and all this. Well, the way you take a look at it is that maybe it might seem like a lot, but really we have to take a look at the market cap, which wouldn't be too ridiculous, because if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around $7.5 billion, which is around a 77x from here. Now, I don't think that market cap is like too much to ask for, because I feel like we can all agree, right? 2021, even despite a very amazing altcoin season, I felt like the factors weren't as bullish as right now. And it's even showcasing some, numbers, right? Because back then, during the peak of that bull run, around 300 million crypto owners. Now, there was over 600 million, according to Crypto.com research, more than ever before in history. So I feel like, again, the factors back then felt like it was a little bit less bullish than right now, even though we haven't seen an altcoin season, or should I say a fully fledged type of altcoin season this time around, hypothetically yet. But even despite that, we saw back then Dogecoin reach over $80 billion in market cap. If a lot of people are saying, oh, Dogecoin's going to go to around 150 or whatever $1 billion market cap during this bull run, are we saying around $7.5 billion is too much to ask for in this case? Again, it's not going to have the most hype, in my opinion, Velo, but it doesn't seem like it's too difficult. Like, even if, let's say, we have that prediction, let's say, okay, Velo goes to the price of 50 cents. That right there is still over a 30x from here. Now, again, I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but even at the price of 50 cents, it doesn't seem too bad to me. But again, it's just a waiting game, and I'm going to wait. That's it. But again, when I see aspects of like, AI meets PayFi, I do like that when it comes to Velo. And again, $1 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.